One of the first things developers have to decide when building a new application is how to structure it. Node does not enforce any specific semantics, so we are free to choose a structure that works best for us. Let's see how we are going to structure our application. At the root of our project structure will be a main.js file. This file will be the entry point to our application. In this file, we will load any startup functions, environmental variables, and we will launch our app from here. Next, we'll have two folders, an app folder that will contain the contents of our Node application, and a public folder which will contain our views and publicly accessible resources such as images, style sheets, and front-end JavaScript. The app folder will have a server.js file which will contain our Express server configuration, database initialization, and other server settings. We'll also split our routes into a separate file called routes.js. Let's also create a database.js so that we can configure and seed our in-memory database. Finally, we'll have a controllers directory that will contain our server-side logic for each of the publicly accessible routes. In here, we'll separate our controllers into two files, core.js and api.js. The core.js file will contain our traditional MVC type controllers, while the api.js file will expose a RESTful API service. Finally, we'll have a util folder which will contain code that we may reuse across different controllers. In this folder, we'll create our twitter.js helper functions that will interact with the Twitter API, and we'll also create a db.js file that will provide helper functions for working with the in-memory database. Next, let's take a look at our public folder directory structure. Within the public folder, we'll create two folders. One titled Assets, which will contain our front-end assets such as JavaScript and CSS style sheets, and a second folder titled Views, which will contain the views for our application. In the Views directory, let's create the scaffolds for our application. For now, we'll just have 3 pages. We'll create an index.ejs file for our home page, top.ejs for our top queries page, and finally a results.ejs file for our results page. Let's create one more directory here and call it partials. The partials directory will contain views that we will reuse across the 3 pages. Common elements such as the header and footer are prime candidates for separating into the partials directory. So let's create a header.ejs and footer.ejs file in this directory. Let's also add a head.ejs file so that we can abstract out the head metadata and easily reuse it as well. Finally, in the assets directory, let's create 2 folders titled CSS and JS. In the CSS directory, we'll create a file called style.css that will hold our app's unique styles, and in the JS directory, we'll create a single file titled app.js, which will contain our front-end JavaScript code. I know this was a lot to do from the get-go, but laying out a good directory structure from the start will ensure our application can evolve easier in the future. It's okay if some things don't make sense right away. We'll take it piece by piece with the next video.